Hey there everybody and welcome. Today I'm going to be teaching and playing through a solo game of Intrepid, the new game by designer Jeff Beck that just recently shipped via Kickstarter. This fully cooperative game puts you on board the orbiting International Space Station, where you'll be primarily using dice placement to make certain that the station is producing sufficient oxygen and nutrition, climate, and power to maintain life aboard the station. There are only a handful of differences, really, that separate the solo game from the multiplayer game, so by watching this solo video, you're going to come away with a pretty good understanding of exactly how the game plays in a multiplayer game as well. And when differences arise, I will obviously make note of them. As you can see, I am going to be using a program that I wrote to play the game today. The advantage of my using my program is that, well, you'll not only see everything that happens up close, but also my program is going to ensure that I don't miss any steps or play the game incorrectly at any stage. I'm not going to forget anything. I'm not going to do anything wrong. The program is going to make sure of that. And you're guaranteed to learn the rules correctly the first time around. The game ships with 9 asymmetric country boards, and each country it plays by a unique set of rules and 18 double-sided station tiles. They're all very different, they vary in complexity, and the countries vary in complexity from level 1, which is the easiest, to level 4. For this playthrough today, I'm going to just play through with the United States as my choice of country. That is one of the easiest, and so I shouldn't have any trouble, hopefully famous last words, winning with the United States. But then again, I am filming and trying to think of a couple things at once, so anything is possible, so bear with me. The other thing I should say is that throughout this tutorial and playthrough, I'm going to be doing some things at least to point out different aspects of the game. So I won't always be doing the thing I should have been doing at a particular juncture. Even so, I still think I should be able to pull out a victory because the United States is pretty easy. So if you're looking for a harder game to play, don't go by what you're seeing here. What you're seeing here is an easy game, but believe me, you can ratchet up the difficulty pretty quickly if you want to. I have to assign my country, USA, responsibility of one of the primary station resources. And for today's playthrough, I'm going to have the United States oversee the climate board. Now, there's a particular reason why I'm choosing climate over some of the other resources, and I will make that reason clear once we get to about round 2 or so. As a solo player, I still have to be responsible for all 4 of these resources, but my country board has been assigned specifically to the climate resource. The game ships with 4 different scenarios, and to keep things on the easier side today, I'm going to be playing through the training simulator scenario. This scenario is going to give me up to 10 rounds to try and win the game, as it presents me with different problems or disasters that plague the station each round, further challenging me, I suppose, to meet the goal of producing a positive amount of each of these 4 resources over the course of play. Anyway, that's probably a good enough introduction. Let's get underway, and then you'll pretty quickly see how today's game is going to work. So in the top half of the screen, you can see 32 empty spaces that make up the International Space Station, as well as these 5 pre-printed tiles in the center of the board called docking modules, and one in the center is called the Habitation Module. You will see how those function soon enough. The bottom half of the screen is dominated by 4 resource boards. We've got oxygen over here, we've got nutrition over here, climate, and then power over here. Now, as a solo player, if I wanted to, I could have chosen to play with 2 countries. The solo playthrough would have taken about twice as long, and I obviously would have had to invest not only the time, but the thought process necessary to manage 2 different countries and 2 different sets of dice. I thought for today's playthrough it was sufficient to just play with 1 country, and frankly, personally, that's my preferred way of playing this game solo. Now, as I said, each country has a unique set of 19 double-sided station tiles. It's asking me to place a tile in the station just to get set up, so I'm going to just put it there in the corner. So here's the next one that's I'm being asked to position. So as I said, we have a set of 19 double-sided station tiles. They're all unique by country. So this game comes with lots of different tiles. One side of those tiles is characterized with a blue light icon in the top left corner, and the other side is characterized with a red light icon in the upper left corner. Because I'm playing climate today, and climate happens to be a red light resource. Notice that climate and power are both red light resources. Oxygen and nutrition are both blue light resources. I have to play these starter cards in the space station so that the red light side is face up. And normally when you're playing multiplayer, that rule is hard fast throughout the game. Anytime somebody playing with climate is placing a tile, it's always going to be with the red side facing up. However, when you're playing solo, later in the game, when you're adding more tiles to the station, you can actually choose between blue and red to make up for the fact that you're playing by yourself. That's one of the minor differences between the multiplayer game and the solo game. So what I've played so far is one of the 3 starter tiles for the USA. That was the first one, the heat rejection system it was called. This is the second one. You notice it says starter. Because we're playing the training simulator, I know for a fact that positioning is less important for the simulator. So just to keep things simple, I'm just going to put all these in a row over here. So there's the heat rejection system. This is going to be the aluminum shielding. Then the last of the 3 starter tiles is the solar array. That's going to go here. There are things called boost tiles that you play with under one of 2 conditions. You play with a boost tile if you happen to be a player who's managing 2 resources. That would happen in a 2 or 3 player game. And because I'm playing solo, I also get to place this boost 1 tile. For solo play, I have to play this boost 1 thermoelectric generator with the red side facing up. And I will put it over here in the corner. Then there's one other boost tile, the boost 2 tile. And when you're playing solo, you're going to put down both a boost 1 tile and a special boost 2 tile. The boost 2 tile is always placed face up with the color opposite the color you otherwise used for all your other tiles. So in this case, this photobioreactor chamber, boost 2 tile, has to get placed blue side up because I'm playing climate, which is a red resource. So I'm going to put that one over here. And now all the dice are getting rolled. Let's take a look at this heat rejection system. Here, because there's a box with a 2-5 in it, I can place a die on this tile of value 2 through 5. And if and when I do, I can optionally take a die in my pool of dice that has to be of value 5, and I can adjust it to make it a 6 or make it a 4. So that's an immediate ability I can take advantage of right away. Later in the future phase, this tile, if it has a die on it, is going to earn me 4 climate. So this aluminum shielding can take 2 dice at 2 different times. And for each die, I can gain another die into my pool equal to the value of the die that I just placed plus or minus 1. Now, with few exceptions in this game, 6 wraps to 1 and 1 wraps to 6. So if, for example, I put a 6 here, I could then take another die, add it to my pool of value 5 or value 1. Later in this same phase, I can put another die here. Say I put a 1 on this space, because these are not connected. So that die also gets me another die, plus or minus 1. I could take a 6 or a 2 in that case. And again, later in the game, that die is also going to generate 1 climate for me as a result of this tile. The solar array, that's a double 1 to 6. I have to put 2 dice on this tile, and they have to be the same die. So let's say I put down 2 3s. The immediate effect is I'm going to gain a die equal to one of the dice I placed plus or minus 2. So in that example, I would either gain a 1 or a 5. Then later in the game, when we start collecting resources, this set of dice is going to earn 6 power. Let's go over to this boost 1 tile. It takes 1 die of value 2 to 4. When I place the die, I can roll a new die into my pool. And then later on, I will earn 6 power and 6 climate. Lastly, we have the photobioreactor chamber. 2 dice have to be placed. There's no double here indicated, so I could put, say, a 6 and a 3, or a 2 and a 4, but 2 dice are required. Once I put those dice there, I can then take 2 dice from the cache, add it to my pool, and then add 2 new dice into the cache that are equal to the dice that I just played here. What's the cache, you may ask? Well, when you're playing with other players, there are certain things you can do to share dice with one another. But because I'm playing solo, I have nobody else to share dice with. So the game gives me a pseudo player with this cache of dice, and it just happened to be that they rolled 2, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to represent the other players in the game that I'm playing with, so that anytime I want to have one of them share a die with me, it's going to be one of these 4 dice. With this heat rejection system, an effect says may adjust. That means I don't have to, I'm not required, but if the word may is not present, then I must do what the instruction says. Now let's take a quick look at the resource boards. In my program, I simply present them as big tracks. So you can see that currently on each of these 4 tracks, the number -3 is highlighted because I'm playing solo. You start each one of these resource boards on -3. Other than that, it goes from -3, -2, -1 into the positive area, wraps around and moves up until it hits 40, and 40 is the maximum. So the fact that this oxygen track is set at -3 indicates that that is the drain of that track. The drain means that in order to keep the space station running, keeping everybody alive, 3 oxygen is required. So if I gain 5 oxygen, well then this marker is going to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is telling me that, well, I may have gained 5 oxygen, but in reality I only have 2 oxygen because 3 of it was used to keep the space station running. In reality, this is represented by a wheel. The wheel spins so that the drain can change from -3 down to -4 to -5, all the way down to, I think, -28. You can never be above a drain of -3. That's the hard limit. And then when you're moving this marker along this track, the track is actually a plastic overlay that sticks onto the wheel. It's actually made by game trays, so that moving the cube and the dial are completely and apart from one another. One doesn't affect the other. So if this drain, say, if I did this and changed the drain to -5 and then move this 10 spaces ahead, it would move to +5 because 10 minus 5 equals +5. All right, I'm going to restore this back to where it was, to a drain of -3. Remember I said the drain can never go above -3. In each round, I have to ensure that I make a positive amount of every one of these resources. In order to be successful and not lose the game, I would like to be in the white space of each track. Now, if I happen to fall below that into the 0, 1, 2, or 3 range on one or more of these resources, then I can tap into what are called emergency supplies that let me get away with messing up twice before I have to suffer the consequences. We'll talk about emergency supplies later on as well. The key point is, if I end up with any one of these resources in the red at -1 or lower, then I'm immediately going to lose the game. The objective here is to be gaining sufficient resources to stay in the white, if possible, for all 4 of these resources. All right, well, you already saw that phase 1 of round 1 was the roll dice phase. And as the USA, I start the game with 2 dice. If you look on my player board, you'll see that the first space of my dice track has a 2 next to it, so that tells me I start the game with 2 dice. I can spend a resource later on in the game to add to that number of dice. So now that we've rolled all the dice, we rolled the cash, we rolled my dice, and the cash, by the way, is only rolled once at the start of the game. It's never re-rolled after that unless instructed to do so. So I have a 2 and a 6, and now we're in phase 2, which is the meat of each round, where each player places dice. As a solo player, I usually go to the boost tiles first. So I think I'm going to take a 2 and put it into the thermoelectric generator. Remember, that takes a die of 2 to 4, and that's later going to produce 6 power and 6 climate. And it's also going to roll a new die into my pool. So let's start by putting a 2 there. New die gets rolled. It's a 4. So now I have a 4 and a 6. And you can see that these boxes up here are keeping track of the amount of each resource that I'm collecting as I play. In reality, when you're playing the game, you're going to add up all those later, but chances are you're going to want to be keeping track in your head to make sure that you don't blow it when the time comes. This is a cooperative game. All players are playing together, so there should be a lot of open talk and dialogue as players are deciding what dice to play and where to play them. Generally speaking, you only play dice on your tiles. So if I were playing with 3 other players and I was the US, I would only be putting dice on my USA tiles. You can see they have the USA flag in the background. By and large, each player is playing their board and their tiles, so there's no real risk of alpha gaming in this game. So now that I've played to this boost tile, I'm going to play to this boost tile. Remember, I need 2 dice here, but they don't have to be the same. And it's going to allow me to take 2 new dice from the cache. Well, I know I'm going to need a pair of dice for the solo array, and I already see that there's a pair of dice in the cache, so I'm probably going to grab those 2. Therefore, I'm going to play the 4 and the 6 into the photobioreactor chamber. When all is said and done, the 4 and the 6 that I put on this will also be added to the cache to make up for the fact that I removed 2 of the dice, so they have to be restored. Later on in the game, I'm going to be earning 9 nutrition and 9 oxygen, which is going to be reflected here in this blue box and this green box. Choose 2 dice from the cache. That's going to be the 2 and the 2. And now the 4 and the 6 got added to the cache. So as promised, with those 2 2s, I'm going to place that on the solar array, and that's going to allow me to gain a die at plus or minus 2. Therefore, I can take a 6 or a 4, and I'm going to later gain 6 energy. So do I want a 4 or a 6? I don't think it matters much looking at what's left, so I'm going to take a 4. Power goes up to 12 total. Now I want to make use of the aluminum shielding tile. I can take a die of value 5 or a die of value 3. Doesn't matter, I'll take a 5. With this 5, I'm going to put it down on the same tile on the other slot. I'm going to gain another die of value 4 or 6. Clearly, I don't want to take a 6 because this remaining station tile requires a 2 to a 5. So I'm going to take a 4. This last tile, the heat rejection system, well, it's going to allow me to adjust a die in my pool of value 5 by plus or minus 1. When I'm done here, I'm not going to have any dice in my pool, so it doesn't matter, but I am going to be able to put the 4 here, and then I'm going to pause as we enter the next phase. Now we're in the calculate results phase. This is where you actually gain the resources that you produced earlier. If you were playing with the game components themselves, the person who manages oxygen would move the little tracker on the wheel. They would move it 9 spaces to the right, gaining a net of 6, because 9 minus 3 is 6. I gain 9 nutrition. The 3 is going to move to the 6. I'm going to gain 12 climate, so this is going to move to the 9. I'm going to gain 12 power. This also will move to 9. So you can see these markers are moving. Now we're in the use resources phase. What I haven't shown you so far is that there are some missions that we need to be completing in order to win the game. There are actually 3 missions. The first of those 3 missions is revealed at the start of the game, and in my case, the one that I got up at random was fire up the welding torch. This mission won't be started until I actually place a die of value 1 on it. At that point, it will start, and that's when I'm going to be able to see what the second mission is going to be. When I put a die on the second mission and start that mission, I'll see what the third mission card is. Those are the 3 missions you have to start and complete in order to win the game. We'll talk more about that when the time comes. The second thing that happens in the use resources phase, you can check to see if any of the resources has triggered a bonus. In order to get the first bonus for any resource, it has to reach a level of 18. I'm nowhere near 18, so let's not even talk about resource bonuses until I actually trigger one. I'm bound to do that later in the game. Third step of the use resources phase is to see if you've lost the game. If you still have missions that are outstanding, and at least one of the resources is in the red zone. The last step of the use resources phase is that I gain capacity. The amount of capacity that each player gains is equal to the value of the resource board that's at its lowest. If we were playing a multiplayer game, each player would gain an additional 6 capacity. Now, because we're playing at an easy level, or actually what's termed a moderate level, each player starts with 6 capacity. Because we're playing solo, I get to earn double the lowest value on these tracks. So instead of gaining 6 capacity, I gain 2 times 6, or 12, for a total of 18. Now we're in the resolve disasters phase. A disaster card is going to show up. When we're playing with the training simulator, the 10 cards are always in the same order, and they're always the same 10 cards. So I know what the first disaster card is going to be. System check. If you have made less than 5 capacity this round, reset the game and start again. I made 12 capacities. From there, we move into the spend capacity phase. And there are 5 different ways you can spend capacity. Remember, each player starts with a set of 19 double-sided station tiles, 3 of which are starters. And if you look at the tiles for USA, you're going to see that there's 4 what are called Tier 1 tiles, 4 Tier 2s. I've got 4 Tier 3s and 4 Tier 4s. But the 4 Tier 1s are currently at my disposal. Because we're playing solo, I have the luxury of toggling the color and using either side of the tiles. Red tiles favor climate and power, while the blue side favors nutrition and oxygen. Before we actually install a tile, I'd like to get into Tier 2 if possible. The way you do that is by spending capacity on the research track. Each step costs a number of capacity equal to the number of players. So in a solo game, 1 capacity advances 1 step. If I want to get to level 2 and see Tier 2 cards, I have to spend 5 capacity. If this were a 4-player game, to advance 1 step, 4 capacity would need to be spent. That cost can be shared among the players. And I know I want to advance to level 2, so this is going to cost me 5 of my 18 capacity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm down to 13 capacity, but if I go back and look at my tiles, now you can see that my Tier 2 tiles are also part of the offer. Now, what kind of tile do I want to install? Well, I'm doing well in climate and power, not quite as well in oxygen and nutrition. I also know that in the next 4 or so rounds, I'm going to need an increasing amount of climate. So I think I'm tempted to install a good climate tile right now. And maybe the best one would be this one that generates 9 climate. You can see that it requires 2 dice, a double 2 or a double 3, and lets me gain a die equal to the die's place times 2. So if I placed a double 2, I'd gain a 4, and if I placed a double 3, I'd gain a 6. And then later, during the calculate results phase, I would gain an additional 9 climate. I think I'm going to take that tile, but let's look more closely. There's a cost. It's going to cost me 6 capacity, and it's going to drain nutrition by 2, down to -5. This round, we gained 9 nutrition, which got us to 6. But if we gain that same 9 nutrition next round with a drain of -5, we're only going to get to 4, which is barely enough. But I can live with that for now. So I'm going to install the nitrogen tank assembly. Again, because we're playing with the training scenario, I don't really have to worry about where I put the tile, so I'm just going to put it here above the heat rejection system. And that cost me 6 capacity. I'm down to 7, and now the drain on nutrition has fallen to -5. The next thing I want to do is obtain more dice. If you look at my player board more closely, you can see I'm currently starting with 2 dice, but if I pay 4 capacity, I can start each round with 4 dice instead. I like the sound of that, so I'm going to increase my starting dice from 2 to 4, and that's going to cost me 4 capacity. I drop down to 3. Now, I don't have to spend all this capacity if I don't want to. It carries through from one round to the next. But I think I will use the remaining 3, and I'm going to use it to place an Amplify token. There are 6 Amplify tokens in the game, an Amplify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when you're playing a solo game, you start with 1 of each. If you're playing a 4-player game, you start with 2 of each. Right now, one of the things I could do is spend 3 capacity, and that's what I've got left, to place an Amplify token. An Amplify token, when placed on a tile, says that if you place a die of the matching die on the Amplify token on that tile, you'll gain 3 more of the resource you would otherwise gain from that tile. So I'm going to put an Amplify token on the thermoelectric generator, the boost tile. So I'm going to put an Amplify token on this tile, and I think probably the safest thing to do is to put an Amplify 3 token there. So I'm going to choose an Amplify 3 token and put it on this thermoelectric generator. Costs me 3 capacity. It's always 3 capacity to place an Amplify token. So if and when I put a 3 on this tile, I could choose to gain 6 power, 6 climate later, plus an additional 3 power or an additional 3 climate. So I'm out of capacity at this point. So let's take a look at what these 4 career badges let me do. This first one over here says, you may destroy a tile in your current offer row. That would be one of these face-up tiles here. I can destroy one of those to give myself 2 additional capacity. Over here we have the technical officer. You may place a disable token on one of your tiles that obviously disables the tile so you can't use it, and place dice on it to give any player 2 capacity. The medical officer says you may spend 2 capacity to give any player an extra die of any value they choose usable in the next round. And then lastly, over here we have Flight Engineer. You may drain this resource by 2 in order to reduce the drain of another resource by 2. Why don't we actually use the Flight Engineer? Let's reduce the power drain by 2 so it falls to -5, and let's use it to get the nutrition drain back from -5 up to -3. So I'm going to click on Flight Engineer. You can only use each one of these once per round. And I'm going to increase nutrition by 2. So this falls to -5. This rises to -3. What else could we use here? Why don't we use the mission specialist to destroy a tile that we could otherwise install so that we can gain 2 more capacity. And I think we can get rid of the power transfer unit, so I'll destroy that. And now I've gained 2 more capacity. So if I go back to tiles, you can see that's gone now from the list. Now that I have 2 capacity, I can use the medical officer, spend that 2 to give myself an extra die of some value that I could use next round. Honestly, I don't think we're that desperate. I think I'm going to hang on to that 2 capacity and roll it over to the next round. I'm going to move into round 2. We're going to roll our 4 dice. We don't re-roll the dice in the cache. So I ended up with a 1, 3, 4, and a 6, and now we're in the place dice phase. Before I forget, I do want to start that first mission, and fortunately we rolled a 1. So I'm going to place that 1 on the mission card to get it going. This round, during the use resources phase, we're going to need to consume an extra 2 climate, and then the die will increment to 2. All right, and the next mission is put your back into it, and that's going to consume nutrition. We'll revisit that mission card the next round. Let's see, we did roll a 3 for that Amplify token. So let's place the 3 on the thermoelectric generator, and that will roll a new die into our pool, and the Amplified token will allow us to increase climate by an extra 3. I mean, we actually get a choice. We could increase power or climate. We're obviously going to increase climate. So we'll take the 3 and put it here. Roll the new die. We get a 6. That's nice. We have double 6s. And with the Amplified token, because the 3 matched the 3 on the token, we can get that extra 3 resources, and we'll take the climate. So now our climate is at 9. So next we'll go to the other boost tile, the photobioreactor chamber. And that does not need doubles, but it does let me take 2 dice from the cache, and then the 2 6s will take their place in the cache. So that's going to keep at least a pair of dice there, and that I think could be very useful. So I'm going to highlight the 2 6s, put them in the photobioreactor chamber, and for the 2 dice, I could take a pair of 4s, but I actually want to use the nitrogen tank assembly, and that needs a pair of 2s or a pair of 3s. So I'm going to take the 3 and the 4, and you'll see how we turn that into a pair of 3s. So to get the pair of 3s that I need for the nitrogen tank assembly, I'm going to place one of the 4s on the north docking module. So this docking module lets me take a die from the cache, and I can modify it by -1 if I want to. I could lower its pip value by -1, or I could take it at face value, whatever. So I will put my 4 there, and take a 4 from the cache, but use the docking module's ability to change the 4 into a 3. And then the 4 that I placed there will go back into the cache. And now I have a pair of 3s. So if I were playing with other players in a multiplayer game, I might put my 4 there, and then one of my partners, for example, could gain either a 4 or a 3 from his or her supply. Of course, because I'm playing solo, I chose a die from the cache and can either gain a die of the value I choose, or I can gain a die of the value +1. And similarly, there's a docking module down here that lets me take a die from the cache and increase it by one pip if I want to. Anyhow, now that I have a pair of 3s, I will highlight those and place them on the nitrogen tank assembly, which will get me a 6. 2 times 3 equals 6, and 9 more climate. So climate is now standing at 18. Climate is high enough that I can trigger a bonus, a resource bonus this round. Recall that the first bonus level you have to meet is 18, and you'll see how that works in the use resources phase later on. So I need another pair of doubles, and I have a 4 and a 6, so I will place my 4 on the east docking module. That lets me take a die from the cache without modifying it. And the west docking module works exactly like the east docking module. I'll take a 6 from the cache. The 4 will go in there, and now I have a pair of 6s. And those two 6s are heading for the solar array. It'll let me gain a die of value 2 or 4 because I'm putting 6s there. And I will take a 4, though it probably doesn't much matter. And that's going to add 6 to my pending power. So that brings it up to 12. I can use now aluminum shielding. I can put the 4 there and turn it into 3. And then put the 3 on the second slot of aluminum shielding and turn it back into a 4. And I'll finally place the 4 on the heat rejection system. I'll get a bump of 4 more climate, bumping it up to 24. Calculate results. We just collect all the resources. And now in the use resources phase, we are using the 2 climate from the mission. And now you can see that the mission die has gone up to 2. And our climate has fallen from, well, it was at, I bumped it up to 24 climate. With the drain of 3, it was at 21. And I just used 2 of that for the mission. So I'm at 19, but that's still enough to trigger a resource bonus. So when you get a resource bonus for any one of the resources, you can only get 1 per resource per round. You can either have every player gain 3 capacity. I'm playing a solo game, so only I would gain 3 capacity. Or I could speed a mission along by incrementing a mission die by 1. And I am going to do the latter. I'm going to raise the welding torch die from a 2 to a 3, which means that that mission will complete effectively 1 round sooner than it otherwise would. But it also means that next round we're going to need to have 8 climate because this die is going to be a 3. So we'll increment the mission die. There's only 1 die to increment, so the 2 goes to a 3. And now, so we got a disaster card, and we'll come back to that in a second. But I do want to point out that the cube on the resource bonus track for climate has now gone up 1 notch, which means to trigger another resource bonus from climate, we're going to need to get all the way up to 22 during the use resources phase. As opposed to 18. And then after that, we need to get up to 27, and then 34, and then 40. Okay, back to the disaster. So the second disaster card is coolant disruption. Disable one of your climate tiles. Now this only happens, any token that you put on a tile lasts 1 round. All tokens are removed, I think, during the calculate resources phase. So as you'll notice that the Amplify token that used to be here is gone and has been returned to the supply. So now we have 1 of each Amplify token. And now I have to disable 1 climate tile, 1 tile that produces climate. And that's the reason why USA is associated with climate. Because if I didn't associate USA with climate or with power, and I wasn't using the red side of my tiles, then I would have a bunch of tiles that collected oxygen and nutrition, but that produced, I would have a lot of tiles that produce oxygen and nutrition. And unless I actually constructed a tile last round to produce climate, which in fact I did, but now I would have to end up disabling a rather powerful tile. So by choosing to associate USA with climate, or I could have chosen power for that matter, as long as I had a red light icon on the player board, it means I have a lot of climate tiles here, and I have some crappier tiles that I can now disable in order to meet this disaster card. Because I knew this disaster card was coming up. It's the second card that appears when you're playing the training simulator scenario. Now, you would think I'd want to disable this one because it only generates 2 climate. But this effect that allows me to modify a 1 to a 6 and bump it up by 1 or reduce it by 1, and I could do that twice, is really nice. I would hate to give that up. So the next best climate tile to get rid of, well, temporarily at least, would be this one. The ability is may adjust a die in your pool by a value of with a value 5 plus or minus 1. Well, what are the odds that I'm going to have a 5 and I can make use of this tile? And this gives up if I disable this one, I would lose 2 climate, 1 climate per die. If I give up this one, I'm losing an extra 2 climate, but I'm willing to do that to be without this ability next round. So this one's going to get disabled. Oh, I have to unpause. Choose the climate tile you want to disable, and this tile now gets a disable token put on it. And I collected a capacity equal to the lowest value down here, which was 6, times 2 was 12. So now I had 2 capacity that I saved from last round, so I have a total of 14 capacity to work with this round. So with 14 capacity, let's spend 3 of that to advance our research so that we can get to tier 3 tiles. So I'm going to use 3 of that to go up to level 3 on the research track. So we have 11 capacity left. And currently we're producing enough climate now, but we're hurting a little bit in oxygen and nutrition because those are down at level 6. And we're going to need nutrition to satisfy our next mission once we put a die on that. So I think right now our best bet is to build a tier 3 tile that generates nutrition. So we'll go to our tiles. To see tiles that generate nutrition, we have to toggle the color and look at the blue side up of all these tiles. So I'm just going to toggle the color. Now you can see we have a lot of nutrition tiles to choose from. And the Saboteur system looks to be the best one. Well, actually, these two are similar. As long as you could put a 6 on this tile, you could get 6 plus 5 or 11 nutrition. But this doesn't depend on the die. And it also gains a die equal to 2 times the pips. But it does require a double, 1, 2, or 3. And this one only requires a 3, 4, 5, or 6, and then allows you to adjust a die in your pool of value 5 again by plus or minus 1. So between the 2 of them, I like the Saboteur system better. So I think I'll install the Saboteur system. That's going to reduce capacity by 8, as you can see here, and it's going to drain power by an additional 2. And I'll just stick it here next to the nitrogen tank assembly. And our capacity falls to 3, and the drain on power is now at minus 7. We have 3 capacity left, and let's start, as far as career badges are concerned, let's start with the medical officer. Can spend 2 capacity to give a player an extra die next round. Now I could, if I wanted to, go up to the next dice level by spending 6 capacity, but I don't have that right now And while I could use the other career badges to get me up to 6, I think for now, so this is only going to get me another die. I can accomplish the same thing by using the medical officer. Let's take a die. Let's take a die of value 1, since I want to get this mission started next round, and I want to ensure that I have a 1. I may roll 1, but this way I'm guaranteed to have 1. So now we have an extra die. This is not going to get rolled during the roll dice phase at the start of round 3. With 1 capacity left, I could destroy another tile using this to get 2 more capacity and place another Amplify token. But I think we're okay for now, I think. I'm hoping somewhere along the way I'm going to need emergency supplies so that I can demonstrate to you how that works. So let's go ahead and end the spend capacity phase, start round 3, and we're going to roll another 4 dice in addition to the pink 1 that we have going in. And we have a 1, 2, 5, 6, and a 6. I'll start by using the 1 to activate this next mission. That's going to consume an extra 2 nutrition during the use resources phase. And remember, we need an extra 8 climate for this mission. So we're putting a 1 there. And the third mission is all systems go, which consumes power. You'll notice I have these little boxes up here that remind me that I need to consume an extra 8 climate this round and an extra 2 nutrition for the second mission. The third mission is going to require another 1 at some point in order to start it up, and we'll probably do that next round. As usual, I'll turn my focus to the boost tiles first, and I'll take the double 6 that I have and go to the photobioreactor chamber, which will allow me to take 2 dice from the cache, and I have a choice of a pair of 4s or a pair of 6s, and I'm putting a pair of 6s back. We're going to need some lower doubles to work with, so I think I'll start by taking a pair of 4s, although I could turn a pair of 6s into 1s, so it's 6 of one, half dozen the other, but I'll take a pair of 4s. And now we've got 4 6s in the cache. Maybe that's a little bit limiting, but I think we can deal with that. We need this pair of 4s to be a pair of 3s, or make one of these 4s a 2, so we have a pair of 2s. So I think I'll use aluminum shielding this time. So I'll put a 4 into the first slot of aluminum shielding and turn that into a 3. And now I'll put the 3 into the second slot to turn that into a 2. And now I have a pair of 2s. And I'll place the pair of 2s on the nitrogen tank assembly, which will let me gain a 4 as a result, a die of 2 times the number of pips, and that will generate a 9 more climate. And now I'll take one of the 4s and go to the thermoelectric generator boost tile, which will roll a new die into our pool and generate 6 energy and 6 climate. And we got a 2, so we have a 2, 4, and a 5. I'll take the 2 and put it in the west docking module and take a 6. And I'll place the 4 in the east docking module and take another 6. So now there's a 2, 4, 6, and 6 in the cache. I'll take the double 6, put it on the solar array, let me gain a 2 or a 4 again, and it'll generate 6 power. And for the saboteur system, I'm going to need a pair of 2s, so I'm going to take the 2. To get that other 2, I'll put the 5 on the south docking module and take a 2 from the cache. but I won't change it to a 3 even though I could. And those 2s will go on the Saboteur system, which will get me a 4 and generate 11 nutrition. Well, remember, I can't put the 4 on the heat rejection system because that tile is disabled. My only real choice at this point is to place it on the Habitation Module. The way the Habitation Module works is that you can place any number of dice from any number of players on the Habitation Module, and at the end of the Calculate Resources phase, you can take all of those dice on the Habitation Module and generate a corresponding amount of one resource, your choice, depending upon what you need, most of all. Now, when you put a die or dice on the Habitation Module, it has to be the last placement of your turn, which at this point it is. But if I happen to have, if I did have a 4 and a 5 and a 6, and I put any one of those dice on the Habitation Module, I would actually have to put all of my dice on the Habitation Module. Calculate the results phase, so we're collecting all the resources that are due us. And now it's time to collect for that one die on the Habitation Module. So we have plenty of climate in order to consume 8. And we have plenty of nutrition. We only have to consume 2 there. Even if I took nutrition for the Habitation Module, I'd get up to 18, but then I'm going to consume 2 for the mission, so I'm not going to get a resource bonus. I'll just take a power. Use resources phase, so we're getting the consuming the climate. That die goes up to a 4. We're consuming nutrition, and that die goes up to a 2. And now it's time for the disaster phase. And this disaster is oxygen leak. Drain oxygen by 3. So our oxygen is going to go from a drain of 3 to a drain of 6, and my program will take care of that for me. Spend capacity phase, we got another 12 in addition to the 1 capacity we had before, so we increased our capacity by 12. 12 plus 1 is 13. Okay, so we have 13 capacity to work with. And so we already decided that for this next mission, we're going to need more power. So I guess I'm going to build a tier 3 or possibly a tier 4 power tile. Over here, we're going to need 10 climate next round, but then this mission card will end and all resources will reduce their drain by 1, which will be nice. Because once a die reaches 5, the mission is complete. This is now at a 2, so we're going to consume a 6 nutrition, and then it will increment to 3. I said I wanted to generate power, and for that I need to go back to the red side. We have this fission reactor. It takes a pair of dice and generates 11 power. But then again, we have enough power to get by. Even if we start that next mission, we're going to need an extra 2 power. We're okay there. Where we're not okay really is in oxygen. So maybe I need to install a station tile that generates oxygen. For that, we could go with the Vika canisters, or we could do the physiochemical recycler that generates 14. This would generate 10, which would be more than enough, and it only requires 1 die. The problem with the Vika canisters is it's going to drain power by 2 more. So our power is going to go from a drain of -7 to -9. I'm not sure there's any way. Well, we could go here and drain climate instead. But I have we're going to need that 10 climate. I think we're going to have to go with the Vika canisters and continue to plug away on our power, and hopefully we'll have enough power to get by. We will at least for one round, but I think next round we are going to have to generate more power. So we'll build a Vika canisters. It's going to consume 9 capacity and drain power by 2. And I'll just stick it right here. So power is now drained at 9. But you can see that as long as we generate the same amount of power next round that we did this round, we'll be okay. I have 4 capacity. I'm going to go back to my medical officer and we'll get another 1 to start the 3rd mission. And that leaves me with 2 capacity. This time I think I am going to go ahead and use Mission Specialist to destroy a tile from my offer in order to gain an additional 2 capacity. So I probably can get rid of one of these. I'll just get rid of this tile here. Thermal exchange unit on the one side and 3D food printer on the other. Doesn't really matter. That one's going. We get another 2 capacity. We're back at 4. And this time I will spend 3 of that to place another Amplify token. Again, I'll use another 3. Place an Amplify 3 on the thermoelectric generator just to give us an extra 3 climate or 3 power if we need it in a pinch. We have 1 capacity going into round 4, which is fine. We'll end the phase, start round 4, roll our 4 dice in addition to the 1 that we have that we're not re-rolling, of course. Oh, well, we got plenty of 1s. I'll take 1 of the 1s and put it on the next mission card, All Systems Go, which is going to consume 2 power. So now we need 10 climate, 6 nutrition, and 2 power in order to satisfy our missions. But remember, once we consume that 10 climate, this mission's going to end, and all the drains on all the resources, well, not all of them, we won't reduce the drain of nutrition and climate because this value can't go above -3. All right, so we have a 1, 1, 2, and 6. The thermoelectric generator needs a 2 to a 4, but I need to put a 3 here in order to satisfy the Amplify token. So I will put the 6 on the north docking module. That lets me reduce the die that I take from the cache by 1 if I want to. I'll take a 4 and turn it into a 3. And now that 3 is going to go straight to the thermoelectric generator, which will generate 6 power and 6 climate, and I could increase either one of those by 3. Also gets me a rolled die. It gets me another 1. I'll increase power by 3. Notice, of course, that all of the cubes got reset to the leftmost corner for the new round. For the other boost tile, I can put a pair of 1s over there. So we'll take 2 1s and put them here. They don't have to be a pair. I could have used a 1 and a 2, but it doesn't really much matter. And this will let me take 2 dice from the cache, and it'll generate 9 nutrition and 9 oxygen. So for the 2 dice, I will take a pair of 6s. And a pair of 1s are going to go into the cache. I actually need a low pair, so I'll take the 6 and put it on the first slot of aluminum shielding, and I'll turn that 6 into a 1. Wraps around, remember. And then I'll take the pair of 1s and put them on the saboteur system, which will get me a 2 and produce 11 more nutrition. And now I have a pair of 2s. those will go straight to the nitrogen tank assembly, and that'll get me a 4 and generate 9 climate. So I need another pair for the solar array, and I've got a 4 and a 6. So I'll place the 4 on the east docking module because there's a 6 in the cache, and I'll take that 6, and that leaves me with a pair of 6s, which can go on the solar array, and that'll gain me a die of 4 or 2 and generate 6 power. And I will take a 4. So we have the Vega canisters over here, which can take any die value, but I really want to put a 6 there because the amount of oxygen it generates is the value of the die plus 4. I want to make sure I don't have enough climate. I have 16 climate coming my way right now, which will get me to 13. I need to consume 10 of that, which will get me to 3. That's going to cause me to tap into emergency supplies because I do want to demonstrate how that works. So here's a good example of me sacrificing the better goods so that you can see exactly how all facets of this game work. I'm going to take the 4 and put it on the south docking module. And I'll take the 5 from the cache, and because the south docking module lets me increase that by 1 if I want to, I'll take a 6 and get my 6 that way. I'll take the 6 and I'm going to put it over here on Vega canisters. That's going to generate 10 oxygen. Calculate results phase. Then we go into the use resources phase where we have to consume 10 climate. That'll put us at 3 in the yellow zone. We need to consume 6 nutrition. We have plenty of nutrition. 2 power. As expected, we have just enough power to get by, but we will need to tap emergency supplies. So let's unpause. Take our 10 climate, but we reduce the drain. Not here and here, but only here and here, so it doesn't help us with climate. We consume some nutrition, we consume some power, and now we're going to need more nutrition and more power next round. And now we're getting the message, the level of climate is at 3 and you are tapping emergency supplies. So this token now moves 1 space to the right, and any resource that's less than 5 automatically gets set to 5. So that's going to cause climate to go from 3 to 5. I was at 6 power. I consumed 2 of it to go to 4, but then because we completed that mission, our drain is 1 less, so now we actually have 5 power. I can generate emergency supplies 1 more time. I can't tap emergency supplies a 3rd time, or I will lose the game. So we'll unpause. And we generate 10 capacity. Oh, so we're at the disaster phase. I'll pause there. We generate 10 capacity, which gets me to 11. We carried over the 1 from last round. And our disaster card is corroded food stores. Destroy 1 nutrition tile. Now, 1 of our nutrition tiles has to be gone for good. And there's only this one. We could have destroyed this one, but this obviously doesn't make sense to get rid of a boost tile that generates both nutrition and power. So everything we did to create that saboteur system is now down the drain, and we've lost that extra nutrition just at a time when we need 8 nutrition. Yes, we know we're going to lose the saboteur system. I kind of knew that was going to happen, but c'est la vie. So that tile is now gone, and now we're in the spend capacity phase. We have 11 to work with. I do want to show you how some of the special tier 4 tiles work. So I'm going to spend 2 capacity to get to level 4 all the way to the end of the track. And now let's install a Tier 4 tile. And you can see that this one generates 15 climate, just as you might expect. This one generates 14 power, just like some of the others. But these two are different. This one allows you to increase a mission die by 1, which is one of the same benefits you get for generating a resource bonus. This one, the multipurpose logistics module, is actually the one I have my eye on. This lets you generate the value of the die in any combination of resources that you'd like. This is going to use 10 of my capacity, and look at it. Power is going to drop by another 2. But I do want to demonstrate the multipurpose logistics module, so that's the one we're going to install, except we don't have 10 capacity. Oh, so we're going to go to Mission Specialist and destroy one of the tiles in our offer to get an extra 2 and get us up to 11. And we can get rid of this one, the Aquapad system. Now we have the 11 capacity we need for the multipurpose logistics lab, or multipurpose research lab, sorry. That's going to train nutrition. Oh, I was looking on the red side, but if we install the blue side, we drain nutrition by 2, which is much better than draining power. So actually, this is a better bet. That'll take the place of the saboteur system here. We drain nutrition by 2, so it drops down to 5. We haven't used Technical Officer yet. You may place a disable token on one of your tiles to give a player 2 capacity. So let's use that to disable the heat rejection system. Now we have 3 capacity, and I'll use Medical Officer to get an extra die. What do I want this time? A 3 would be all right. I don't need a mission die anymore, so I think something in the middle, 3 or 4 probably is the best bet. I will take 4. Leaves me with 1 capacity, which I'll save for next round. Now we're going into round 5, and I'm going to roll my 4 dice again, so I'll have 5, including this 4. And we need to consume 8 nutrition and 6 extra power. One, 2, 4, 4, 6. So the thermoelectric generator needs a 2, 3, or a 4. I'll put the 2 there. Got me a 2. That's fine. A pair of 4s is not as useful in my case as a pair of 3s. So I'm going to place the 4 on the aluminum shielding to make it a 3. And I'll put the other 4 on aluminum shielding and make it a 3. And now I'll take the pair of 3s and put it on the, well, I was going to put it on the nitrogen tank assembly. Well, actually, I can put it on the photobioreactor chamber, which lets me take 2 dice from the cache. Well, a pair of 1s is too low, a pair of 4s is too high. I guess that wasn't the smartest way to do this, but it'll work. So I'll put the pair of 3s on the photobioreactor chamber boost tile. And I'll take back a pair of 4s. And I can put the 4s on the solar array and gain a 2 or a 6. That's fine. I'll take a 2. You can see that USA gives you so much flexibility with the dice that you can, between the tiles and the docking modules, you could pretty much get whatever you need. So that's why USA is pretty easy to work with. The 2s will go on the nitrogen tank assembly, which will get me a 4. I'm going to use that 6 on our new multi-purpose research lab, which will get me 6 combination of any number of different resources. And I can gain a 1 or a 5. I'll take a 5. So this is 6 wild resources, effectively. I'll place the, let's see, we need a high value die here. There's a 1 here. Okay, I'll place the 1 on the north docking module. I'll choose a 1 from the cache, but I'll turn it into a 6. And now I'll put that 6 on the Vika canisters to generate 10 oxygen. That leaves me with a 4 and a 5. This tile's disabled, so those 2 are going to go. Whoops, what did I just do? Let's cancel. All right, this tile let me adjust any one die in my pool by plus or minus 1. It doesn't really matter. I didn't need to do that. I'll just take the 4 and the 5 and put it on the Habitation module. That's really my only choice at this point, because this tile is disabled. So that will get me 2 of 1 resource. Calculate results phase. We get all of our resources. And now we can generate 6 of anything we want. And I can already tell this is going to be another emergency supplies turn. We need 6 power. If I get 2 power, we'll be at 6, and 6 minus 6 is 0, so we'll be just in the yellow range. So I'll take 2 of the wild as power. And the other 4 has to be nutrition, because that'll get us to 8. We'll consume all 8 of that. It'll put us at 0, so we'll be just getting by and avoiding complete disaster and losing the game. But this is our last shot to use emergency supplies. So I'm using the rest for nutrition. Gets me up to 8 nutrition. Oh, and now we have the Habitation module. Lets me gain 2 of any one resource. Doesn't really matter, because this is going to be at 0 and this is going to be at 0. Can I use that 2 to get to a resource bonus? I cannot. I don't have enough oxygen to get to 18, and I don't have enough climate to get to 18. It really doesn't matter much. I will just take 2 power. Use resources phase. We're consuming 8 nutrition. Gets us to 0. Consuming, 2 power? 6 power gets us to 2. And now we're tapping emergency supplies. So now that's at 6, and we can't use that again. And the anything that was below 6 goes to 6. So nutrition's now set at 6, and power is set at 6. Our climate and oxygen were both sufficiently high. Okay, now we're in the disaster phase. And what are we looking at here? So now we have our first persistent disaster. So this is station breakdown. Each player with red light tiles, which unfortunately is me, because I'm USA and I'm using the climate board, so that's a red light board, disables one of their tiles. This tile is going to stick around. It's not going to go away. So in order to make this go away and not get affected by it next round, I'm going to have to put a 1, 2, or a 3 on it. Notice it has 2 slots. That's if you're playing a 3 or 4 player game. You have to put 2 dice to make this tile go away. In the meantime, I have to disable a station tile, and it's going to be the same one. We're going to disable the heat rejection system again. We generate 12 capacity, which gets us to 13. This disaster is going to slide to the right, and I'm going to need a 1, 2, or a 3 to make it go away. All right, so am I going to be able to get away without losing this round? I need 10 nutrition and 8 power. I just used up 8 nutrition, so I need another 2 nutrition. And I know I used emergency supplies, so we're going to need that multi-purpose research lab again to help us out. So let's go to my tiles. So mission-wise, this mission's about to be completed this coming round, and this is going to go to a 4. I could take a chance and install this tile, which will allow me to increase the mission die from 3 to 4, and they'll both end next round. And so if I had enough power and nutrition, I could win next round. But I think I'm cutting it too close. I think since we need 10 nutrition, I think I'm going to go with the biomass production system. Die produces die value plus 5 nutrition. And that drains climate, which is fine. Let's use medical officer again to generate a die. This time I'll take a die of value 3. I'll use mission specialist and destroy. Well, I'll just get rid of this other tier 1 tile. That'll get me to 4 capacity. And now I'll place an Amplify 3 token back on the... Actually, I'll put it on the solar array. If I put a 3, an Amplify 3 token, we're going to need a pair of 3s. And I already have 1 3. That's fine. I'll take an Amplify 3 token and put it on the solar array. Let's roll our dice. 3, 3, 5, 5, 5. Lots of pairs to work with, which is good. We need a pair of 3s, and we have it. I'll take another 5. And now that tile produces 9 power. So if I get another 11 power, I'll produce 20 power, which will get me to 12. I consume 8 of that, and that'll put me at 4 in the white zone. So that's exactly where I want to be. Just getting by, but that's fine. I'll take a pair of 5s. I will put it up here on the photobioreactor chamber, and I'll take a pair of 3s from the cache. Let's take a 5, put it on the south docking module, take a 5 from the cache and turn it into a 6. And the 6 can go on the newly installed biomass production system, which will result in 11 nutrition this round. It allows me to adjust the 5 to a 4 or a 6. I'll convert the 5, just a die in your pool value 5 by 1. I'll turn the 5 into a 6. And now we've got 20 nutrition, more than enough. I'll put the 6 on the multipurpose research lab, so we have 6 wild resources to work with. And that'll get me a 5 or a 1, and I'll take a 5. I'll put the 5 on aluminum shielding and turn it into a 4. And I'll put the 4 on the thermoelectric generator, and that rolls me another die and generates 6 power and 6 climate. So now our power's up to 15, our climate's up to 7, and we rolled a 4. I'll take the 3s and put it on the other tile that requires a pair, the nitrogen tank assembly. That's going to get me a 6 and produce 9 climate. I'll put the 6 on aluminum shielding and turn it into a 5. And I'll put the 5 on the east docking module and take a 1. Doesn't really matter. And now we'll put the 1 on the north docking module, where I can reduce it by 1. So I'll take a 1 and make it a 6. And then the 6 will go on the Vika canisters, or maybe it's Vika canisters, but I think it's Vika. Actually, I'm not sure. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing some of these. Maybe anybody in the audience who works for NASA could help me out. These are actually legitimately named tiles. They actually had a NASA consultant help them pick some names that made sense, and then they tried to actually make the tiles make sense in terms of what the tile actually did. Anyway, the 6 is going to go on the Vika or Vika canisters for 10 oxygen. And that's going to adjust a die in my pool by 1, plus or minus 1. So I'll turn the 4 into a 3. Actually, it doesn't matter. Oh, actually, it does matter. Ooh, I need the 3 for the disaster. I completely forgot. Wow, yeah, I need a 3. The 3 is going onto the disaster card. I was going to put it into the habitation module. I almost forgot about this. So now that disaster card is handled and it's gone. It will go away as of the beginning of the disaster phase. All right, so I can generate 6 wild resources. So I easily have the 10 nutrition I need, because 15 minus 10 will put me at 5. I need to consume 8 power. I'm at 7, so I need 5 power in order to get by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now 12 minus 8 will put me at 4. And I have 1 wild resource left. It's not going to be enough to get any kind of a resource bonus. So I'll just take an extra power, which will actually help me. It'll get power up to 5 and it'll generate 10 capacity for me instead of 8 capacity. So there is a reason why you want to make sure you put this in the right place. So now that consumes nutrition and ends. So this mission is finished, and now all of these will reduce the drain by 1. So this will go to minus 4, minus 4, minus 4, and minus 7. That helps. And now that goes up to a 4, and I have 1 more round, and all I need is 10 power to win the game, and I just have to make sure I have enough of everything. That shouldn't be a problem. This disaster is going away, and it gets replaced by proceed with caution. Each player has to place a strain token on one of their tiles. Perfect. So now you get to see how strain tokens work. A strain token is sort of like the opposite of an Amplify token. If you put, let's say, a strain of 3 on a tile, if you don't put a 3 on that tile, you're going to lose 3 of whatever resource the tile generates. Now I know I'm going to want to put a 6 on this tile and this tile and this tile to generate the most of those resources. So I'll put a strain 6 because I know I'm going to, by hook or by crook, make sure I put a 6 on this tile so that the strain won't activate. And there we go. So there is the strain 6 tile. If I don't put a 6 on this tile, or if I didn't put a die on the tile at all, I would lose 3 of any resource. But that's not going to happen. I'm definitely going to put a 6 there in the coming round. We got our, 12 capacity, which got us up to 13. As I said, I'm 1 round away from winning the game as long as I generate sufficient power, which wouldn't be too difficult at all because I just made 21 power. So if I make that again, I'll be at 21 minus 10 minus 7 is 4, and that puts me in the white. So I don't really need a power tile. Actually, I don't think I need a tile at all. So all I'm going to do is spend 3 of the capacity And I'll put an Amplify 3 token back on the thermoelectric generator. Now notice, because this tile already has a strain token on it, I can't put another token of that type on this tile. So I'm going to put my Amplify 3 over here like I did in earlier rounds, and that's going to get me an extra, I'll take 3 power, obviously. There's lots of 5s over here. Let's put an Amplify 5 tile on the solar array, because I know there's plenty of 5s to go around. With 7 capacity, I'll use medical officer. I know I need some 6s, so I'll take a die of value 6. I have a 6 going in to the next round. I have a pair of 6s and a pair of 1s and a 5. Let's take the 2 1s and go to the photobioreactor chamber and take 2 dice from the cache, and I'll take a pair of 5s. The 5s will go where I need the 5 on the solar array, and that will get me a 1 or a 3, and it'll generate 9 power. I'll take a 3. I'll put the 3 on the thermoelectric generator to activate this Amplify token and generate either 9 power or 9 climate. Rolls a die. I roll a 2. And I'll take an extra 3 power. So we have plenty. We already know we're going to win at this point. 6 we'll put on the Vega canisters to get 10 oxygen. And I'll change my 5 to a 6. And that gets me 10 more oxygen. The 6 will go over here to cancel the strain. My program has automatically reduced wild by -3, but by putting the 6 here, I cancel the strain token and I get back that -3, and it'll go to 0. So the -3 is going to turn into a positive 6. And I can take a 1 or a 5. I'll take a 1. And now you can see I've got 6 wild resources, as expected. I'll put a 6 on the biomass production system and generate 11 nutrition. Get a pair of 2s here, so I'll put a 1 on the south docking module. I'll take a 1 and make it a 2. And I'll take the pair of 2s and put it here on the nitrogen tank assembly, which will generate a 4. I'll put the 4 on the aluminum shielding. I mean, we don't need the climate, but I'll take it. And I'll turn the 4 into a 5. I'll put the 5 over here and turn it back into a 4. And then we have our heat rejection system back again. So we haven't had that for a couple rounds. So the 4 is going to go there for another 4 climate. And that should just about do it. Calculate results phase. We get our 19, 20, 21, and 18. And we have 6 wild resources to work with. I need to consume 10 power. I'm at 11 right now, so I need 3 more to be at 14. 14 minus 10 is 4, puts me in the white zone. So I'm going to take, you need a little math till you play this game. No question about it. I'll take 3 power. I've got plenty of climate, plenty of nutrition, plenty of oxygen. I actually could put the remaining 3 on one of these in order to generate a resource bonus, but I really won at this point, so I won't bother. I'll just take 3 power. 17 minus 10 puts me at 7. I've completed all 3 missions. Everything is in the white, and I have therefore won the game. And that is how Intrepid works, especially if you're playing with an easy country and you're playing with the training simulator, so you know exactly what 10 disaster cards you're going to see. Maybe I'll do another one of these solo ventures and play with a tougher country and a different scenario. But this is how Intrepid works. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe. Bye-bye.